Hello, my gorgeous gossipers, and welcome back to Coco Gossip, the only place where we peel back the layers of reality TV to expose the shocking truth underneath. For years, we watched them. Kody Brown and his 4 wives building a life, a family, and a brand on the promise of unity. At the heart of that brand was their flagship enterprise, their great family unifier, My Sister Wives Closet. We saw the designs, the pitches, the on-camera meetings, and then it just vanished. The website went dark. The social media went silent. The common assumption? It simply faded away, another victim of a saturated market and a fractured family. But today, we have the official story, and let me tell you, it is so much more damning. This wasn't a quiet death, this was a state-sanctioned execution. Official records, pulled directly from the Utah Department of Commerce, prove that My Sister Wife's Closet wasn't just neglected. It was abandoned so completely that the government had to step in and shut it down for good. This is the final bureaucratic nail in the coffin of their one-family business dream. This isn't just about a failed jewelry business, folks. This is about years of deception, a paper trail of complete and utter mismanagement, and a public and deeply embarrassing end to the one thing that was supposed to bind them all together. Get ready, because we have the documents, we have the expert analysis, and we have the insider reports that paint a picture of betrayal and neglect that is even more shocking than you can imagine. Before we dive into the official certificate of dissolution that ends it all, do me a huge favor. If you love getting the real, unfiltered story behind your favorite reality shows, hit that bright red subscribe button right now. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're the first to know when we drop bombshells like this one. And please, give this video a big thumbs up to help us fight the YouTube algorithm. Now, let's get into the evidence. The paper trail of shame, the certificate of dissolution. It all starts here. This isn't a rumor. This isn't a theory. This is a legal document, a public record. This is the official death certificate of My Sister Wife's Closet, Inc. On March 15, 2023. The Utah Division of Corporations and Commercial Code issued this certificate of involuntary dissolution. Now, what does involuntary mean? It means the Browns didn't choose to end it. They didn't file the paperwork to close up shop cleanly. No, the state of Utah was forced to dissolve the corporation against their will. And why? The document is brutally clear. The reason cited is failure to file. Failure to file. It sounds so simple, so mundane, but in the world of business, it's a cardinal sin. Every registered corporation is required by law to file an annual report and pay a small renewal fee. This isn't complicated tax law. It's the most basic requirement to prove to the state that your business is still alive and operational. It's like renewing your driver's license. It's a simple yearly task that says, hey, we're still here. For My Sister Wife's Closet, Inc., that simple task was apparently too much to handle. For not 1 year, not 2, but for multiple consecutive years, they failed to do the bare minimum required to exist as a legal entity. But it gets so much worse. We dug deeper into the public database, and what we found was a shocking record of escalating delinquency. Look at this. Year after year, the status was updated. Delinquent. With each missed deadline, the state sends out notices. First a friendly reminder, then a formal warning, then penalties start to accrue. We're talking late fees piling on top of the original fee, interest compounding. According to the state's public business entity search, the total amount of unpaid fees and penalties had ballooned to over $2,000. Let's put that into perspective. The annual renewal fee in Utah is laughably small, around $20. $20 a year, that's it. To get to over $2,000 in penalties means they ignored years of warnings. This is the equivalent of getting a $20 parking ticket, throwing it in the garbage, and then continuing to ignore every single certified letter from the DMV until they suspend your license and send a collections agency after you for thousands. This wasn't an oversight. This was a deliberate, multi-year campaign of neglect. While they were on our screens, filming in their multi-million-dollar property on Coyote Pass, preaching about family unity and their business acumen, official letters from the state of Utah were piling up, completely and utterly ignored. The very foundation of their family business was rotting from the inside out, and no one, it seems, could be bothered to spend $20 in 5 minutes on a government website to save it. This paper trail isn't just about a forgotten fee, it's a testament to the chaos and apathy that had completely consumed the Brown family. It proves that the shiny, happy, one-family business presented on television was nothing more than a hollow prop. The moment the cameras were off, it was left to die. The registered agent, all roads lead to Mary. So, a crucial question arises. Who was legally responsible for receiving these official notices? Who was the designated point person the state of Utah was trying to contact for years? Every corporation is required to have a registered agent on file. This is the person or entity legally designated to accept official correspondence and legal documents on behalf of the company. It's a position of immense trust and responsibility. We pulled the corporate filings. And the last known registered agent for My Sister Wives Closet, Inc. is listed as Mary Brown. Yes. Mary, the first wife, the original matriarch, the one who, for years, seemed to be desperately clinging to her place in the family. Her name is on the legal documents. The address listed is one long associated with her residency. This means that, by law, every delinquency notice, every late fee assessment, every final warning of impending dissolution from the state of Utah was addressed to and, presumably, sent directly to Mary Brown. This is where the story takes a dark and complicated turn. This discovery opens up two equally devastating possibilities. Possibility A. Mary received these notices and did nothing. She watched as the warnings piled up as the fees grew, and she let the business, the family's supposed dream, be executed by the state without lifting a finger. If this is the case, it represents the ultimate act of quiet rebellion. It would be a silent, bitter protest against Kody and Robyn, a final, passive-aggressive statement that she was well and truly done with the facade. It's her saying, "You want to treat me like I don't matter? Fine. Watch what happens when I stop doing the one thing you left in my name." But then there's possibility B, which, according to our inside sources, is far more likely and infinitely more tragic. An insider who has worked closely with the family's production for years has reached out to us with a theory that is absolutely chilling. They believe Mary was set up to be the fall guy from the very beginning. Think about the timeline, Juan, our source explains. They made Mary the registered agent years ago, likely during a period when Kody and Robyn were trying to placate her. It was a symbolic gesture. "See, Mary, you're important. You're legally on the documents." It was a way to give her a title, a sense of belonging, without giving her any actual power or financial control. According to this exclusive theory, Kody and Robyn, who were the primary operators and visionaries behind the business, especially in its later years, effectively gifted Mary the legal responsibility and then completely abandoned her. They never gave her the corporate bank account information to pay the fee. They never reminded her. They never followed up. It was, in essence, her problem now. Our source continued. Kody is famous for what he calls delegating, which everyone else knows is just him dumping a responsibility on someone and then blaming them when it fails. He would have told Mary, "You handle the boring paperwork," and then never spoken of it again. It's entirely plausible that Mary, who was already so emotionally disconnected and focused on her own ventures like her B&B and her clothing line, either forgot, didn't know how to do it, or simply didn't realize the gravity of the notices she was receiving, if she even saw them. Imagine Mary getting official-looking mail from Utah, a state she hadn't lived in for years. In the midst of the turmoil of the move to Flagstaff, the pandemic, and the complete breakdown of her relationship with Kody, is it that hard to believe she might have seen it as junk mail, or as just another problem Kody had dumped in her lap that she had no energy to solve? This puts Mary in an impossible position. Either she is guilty of intentional neglect, or she is a victim of a far more insidious form of neglect from Kody and Robyn. They saddled her with the legal burden and then walked away, leaving her to be the one whose name would be forever attached to the official failure of My Sister Wives Closet. It's a betrayal of the highest order, using a legal designation as a weapon to ensure that if the ship went down, Mary's hand was the one on the worthless tiller. The expert's verdict, a masterclass in mismanagement. To understand just how colossal this failure truly is, we reached out to a small business consultant, Dr. Alana Pierce, who has over 20 years of experience helping entrepreneurs navigate corporate compliance. We showed her the public records for My Sister Wives Closet Inc., the years of delinquency, the mounting fees, and the final involuntary dissolution. We didn't even have to tell her who the owners were. Her reaction was one of pure astonishment. Honestly, in all my years, it's rare to see a business go down like this unless it's a complete scam or has been utterly abandoned for a decade. We're talking about a task that takes, and I'm not exaggerating, 5 minutes a year. You receive an email or a postcard from the state, you log into their website, you confirm your address is the same, and you pay a fee that's less than the cost of 2 lattes. That's it. That's the entire compliance task. Dr. Pierce explained that the state goes to great lengths to prevent this from happening. They don't want to dissolve businesses. It's a last resort. The process of involuntary dissolution is long. It involves multiple notices sent over a long period, typically via both mail and email if one is on file. For a business to be dissolved, this means the owners have actively ignored or failed to receive, due to their own negligence in updating their contact information, a whole series of official communications. It's not a mistake, it's a pattern. It signals a level of mismanagement that is frankly breathtaking. It's a sign of complete and utter abandonment. Complete and utter abandonment. Let those words sink in. Think of all the hours of television we dedicated to watching Kody Brown, the self-proclaimed patriarch and business visionary, pontificating in front of a whiteboard. We saw him drawing diagrams, talking about synergy, about brand building, about creating a legacy. He portrayed himself as the CEO, the driving force behind their financial destiny. This dissolution, this simple $20 failure, exposes all of that as pure theater. It was a performance for the TLC cameras. The moment the real, unglamorous work of running a business was required, the 5 minutes of paperwork, the tiny fee, the great CEO was nowhere to be found. It reveals a stunning hypocrisy at the core of the Brown family's public image. They could perform entrepreneurship for television, but they couldn't be bothered to practice it in reality. Dr. Pierce had one final chilling thought for us. The other thing to consider is the legal liability. When a corporation is dissolved, it loses its liability shield. If there are any outstanding debts or legal claims against the business, the owners can now be held personally responsible. Letting a business be involuntarily dissolved is one of the messiest, most irresponsible ways to end it. It leaves a trail of legal and financial vulnerabilities that a responsible business owner would never ever risk. So not only is it a sign of gross incompetence, but it's also a legally reckless act that could have blown back on all of them. This wasn't just lazy, it was dangerous, and it begs the question, what else were they hiding? What debts or obligations were attached to this business that made it easier to let it be executed by the state rather than winding it down properly? The timeline of turmoil, what was happening on TV. The bureaucratic story is damning on its own, but when you cross-reference the timeline of this corporate neglect with what was happening on the show, the picture becomes infinitely more infuriating. This wasn't happening in a vacuum. This was happening while they were collecting huge paychecks from TLC and living out their most dramatic seasons. Let's go back. The first delinquency would have occurred around 2019 to 2020. What was the big storyline for the Browns then? That's right. The infamous Coyote Pass drama. As the first official warning notice from the Utah Division of Corporations was likely making its way to Mary's mailbox, Kody was on national television, screaming about property lines and demanding the best plot of land for himself and Robyn. The family was consumed by infighting, jealousy, and a disastrous real estate investment. Their supposed family business, the one that was supposed to fund their future, was so far off their radar that a simple renewal notice was ignored. Then we move into 2021. The pandemic hits. The family is more fractured than ever. Kody implements his now infamous draconian COVID rules, effectively isolating himself with Robyn and cutting off the rest of the family. During this period, another delinquency notice would have been issued, another set of late fees would have been added, while Christine was reaching her breaking point and Janelle's sons were being kicked out of their own home. The legal entity of My Sister Wives Closet was slipping further into a state of decay. The irony is staggering. Kody was micromanaging every aspect of his family's personal lives, dictating who they could see and where they could go, all in the name of protecting the family. Yet he couldn't be bothered to protect their actual legal family-owned corporation from being dissolved over a $20 fee. And now for another explosive insider report, a former production assistant who wishes to remain anonymous shared this with us. Insider report. Mail was a constant issue, especially after the move to Flagstaff. Things were chaotic. Mail for all the wives would often end up at one house. I personally saw piles of mail that were considered junk or boring. Kody had zero patience for anything that looked like a bill or an official government form, unless it was directly related to TLC or a big-ticket purchase. He'd literally toss it aside and say one of the wives will deal with it. It was a black hole of responsibility. It's no surprise that something as unimportant as a business renewal from another state got lost in that shuffle of intentional neglect. A black hole of responsibility. That perfectly describes the Kody Brown operational strategy. This wasn't a simple mistake, it was systemic. It was a cultural problem within the family, spearheaded by a patriarch who only cared about the things that brought him immediate gratification or a television storyline. By the time the final dissolution notice was issued in 2023, Christine had already left, Janelle was on her way out, Mary was fully estranged, the family, just like the business, was already dead. The certificate from the state of Utah was simply the official coroner's report, confirming a death that had occurred long ago due to chronic, systemic, and unforgivable neglect. The very business that was meant to be the glue holding them together was ignored and abandoned during the precise moments the family was falling apart at the seams. It's a perfect, tragic metaphor. The financial autopsy and the Robyn Fund theory. We've established the how and the when. Now we need to ask the most important question. Why? Why would a family so seemingly obsessed with their financial image let their flagship company publicly crash and burn in such an embarrassing way? Why not just dissolve it properly? Pay a lawyer a few $100s to file the correct paperwork and close the book cleanly? The simple answer is that it would have required cooperation. A proper dissolution might have required signatures from all the corporate officers, which likely included wives who were no longer on speaking terms. It would have meant opening the books, settling accounts. It would have been work, and as we've established, Kody Brown is allergic to any work that isn't performing for a camera. But our sources point to a deeper, more calculated reason. This brings us to the most bombshell theory of all, a theory whispered about in fan communities for years, but one that our insiders say is terrifyingly close to the truth. We call it the Robyn Fund theory. The theory goes like this. My Sister Wives Closet was never truly intended to be a profitable, self-sustaining business for the entire family. Instead, it was allegedly created and operated primarily as a vehicle to legitimize and funnel family income, including a portion of their TLC money into an entity that was effectively controlled by Kody and Robyn. Think about it. Robyn was the one with the supposed design experience, Kody was the CEO. While the other wives were expected to promote it, attend painful business meetings, and use their platforms to drive sales, the core operation, the vision, and most importantly, the bank accounts were, according to this theory, firmly in the hands of Kody and his favorite wife. An insider who was privy to some of the early financial discussions for the show puts it this way. Insider report. From the start, MSWC was Robyn's baby. Kody saw it as a way to give her a purpose and a status within the family that was separate from just being the new young wife. It was her project that the others were expected to support. The money was always murky. It wasn't a transparent communal pot. It was Kody and Robyn's pot under the family business banner. It allowed them to justify certain expenses, travel, and inventory purchases that primarily benefited them. So, if this theory holds true, the business was less of a family enterprise and more of a personal slush fund for House Kody and Robyn, subsidized by the free labor and promotion of the other three wives. It was a brilliant, if sinister, piece of financial maneuvering within their unique family structure. This theory also explains why they would let it be dissolved so carelessly. Once Christine left, followed by Janelle and Mary, the one family facade was shattered. There was no longer any need to maintain the pretense of a joint business venture. The business had served its purpose. It had legitimized Robyn's role, funneled funds for years, and given them a recurring storyline for the show. Now, it was just a liability. Why keep a corporate entity alive that legally ties you to women you are either divorced from or completely estranged from? Why risk them trying to claim a piece of a business they are technically still a part of? Letting the state of Utah do the dirty work was the path of least resistance. It was the coward's way out. No messy meetings with lawyers, no dividing up assets that may or may not have existed, no need for Mary's signature, just let it die, let the state kill it, and the problem goes away. They could wash their hands of it and pretend it never happened. What they didn't count on, however, is that these records are public. They didn't count on us finding the death certificate and exposing the truth. The very act they took to quietly sweep their failure under the rug has now become the ultimate proof of their dysfunction. The involuntary dissolution isn't just a business failure, it's the final damning receipt of the Brown family's implosion, proving that their loyalty, their promises, and their business ethics were, in the end, completely and utterly worthless. We unearthed the official death certificate of my sister wife's closet. We exposed the years of delinquency, the thousands in unpaid fees, and the shocking reality that the state of Utah had to forcibly shut down the Brown family's flagship business due to complete and utter neglect. We followed the paper trail that led directly to Mary Brown, the designated legal fall guy, and we unveiled the explosive Robyn Fund theory, the idea that the business was never a family venture at all, but a private slush fund for Kody and his favorite wife. But the dissolution of a corporation is like a controlled demolition. When the dust settles, some are left buried in the rubble, while others walk away unscathed, watching the wreckage from a safe distance. This wasn't just the end of a business, it was a reckoning. It was a moment that starkly defined the winners and losers in the 30-year war of the Brown family. So who won? Who lost? And who was left sitting on a throne built from the ashes of a failed dream? Let's dissect the fallout. The ultimate loser and the legal scapegoat, Mary Brown. Let's start with the person whose name is etched onto the official document of failure, Mary Brown. On paper, Mary is the biggest loser in this corporate collapse. Her name, as the registered agent, is now permanently and publicly attached to a business dissolved for incompetence. For a woman who has spent the last decade fighting for a shred of respect and relevance within the family, this is the final public humiliation. Imagine the indignity. While Christine is hailed as a hero for leaving, while Janelle is respected for her independence, Mary is handed this, a legal document that essentially brands her as irresponsible. It's a stain that follows her, a public record that anyone can look up. Her culpability is complex. Was it intentional or was she a victim? We have a new insider report that suggests it might have been the most calculated move Mary has ever made. Insider report. Don't ever underestimate Mary. She's a survivor. For years, she did everything Kody asked. She was a good soldier. The theory among some of the crew is that she saw those notices. She knew what was happening, and she made a conscious choice to do nothing. It was her one final act of power in a situation where she had none. Kody and Robyn had taken everything from her husband, her family, her status. They left her with this one boring administrative task. And by failing to do it, she let their precious business burn to the ground. She let the state expose them. It wasn't laziness, it was malicious compliance. It was the ultimate silent screw you. Malicious compliance. The act of following an order in such a way that it has a negative consequence. If this is true, it reframes Mary from a victim into a quiet saboteur. It's a bitter, tragic, but undeniably powerful move. She couldn't win the war for Kody's love, so she burned down his corporate village instead. But even if it was a power move, the cost is immense. It severs her last tangible link to the one family ideal she clung to for so long. My sister wife's closet was, in its early days, a symbol of her hope. She was a founder. She was on the letterhead. Its death is the death of that last shred of hope. Contrast this failure with her personal success. Her bed and breakfast, Lizzie's Heritage Inn, is a thriving, well-run business that she controls. It's a testament to her own competence. She can successfully manage a business on her own, but the one she shared with her family was left to rot. The symbolism is impossible to ignore. The dissolution of my sister wife's closet may have been a public loss for Mary, but it was also her final, painful liberation from the lie she had been living for 30 years. She lost the battle, but in doing so, she may have finally won her freedom from the war. The dethroned CEO and the emperor with no clothes, Kody Brown. If Mary is the legal loser, Kody Brown is the ideological loser. This dissolution is a direct indictment of his entire identity. For decades, Kody has sold himself to the world and to his wives as the patriarch, the leader, the visionary, the CEO of Brown Family Inc. His entire argument for polygamy was built on the idea that he was a capable leader who could manage a complex family and build a lasting dynasty. The involuntary dissolution of My Sister Wives Closet shatters that illusion into a million pieces. It is the ultimate proof of his incompetence. He couldn't manage a 5-minute $20 task. The emperor has no clothes, and his nakedness is now a matter of public record. Think of the sheer hypocrisy. This is a man who demanded absolute loyalty and obedience from his wives and children. He dictated their lives, their finances, their relationships, all under the guise of his superior leadership. Yet, when it came to the most basic responsibility of leadership, maintaining the legal and financial health of their shared enterprise, he failed spectacularly. This wasn't a market downturn. It wasn't a bad product. It was a failure of the most fundamental duty of a business owner. He let his own ship sink because he couldn't be bothered to plug a hole the size of a quarter. Our inside source, the one who worked on production, paints a picture of a man who was only interested in the performance of being a CEO. Insider report. Kody loved the idea of My Sister Wives Closet. He loved the meetings, the whiteboards, the road trips to trade shows. It was all content for the show. It made him look important. But the day-to-day grind, the paperwork, accounting, he found it demeaning. He saw that as women's work. He'd literally say things like, "I'm the visionary, I can't get bogged down in the details." The dissolution is the perfect consequence for his attitude. The details he ignored are what ultimately destroyed his vision. This failure permanently reframes Kody's narrative. He's not the maverick entrepreneur he pretended to be. He's a lazy, negligent manager who prioritizes his ego over his responsibilities. He lost Christine, he lost Janelle, he lost Mary, and now he has a public record proving he lost their business too. He is the king of a shrinking kingdom, a failed patriarch whose legacy is now officially stamped delinquent. The victorious escape artist, Christine Brown. And that brings us to the biggest, most undeniable winner in this entire saga, Christine Brown. The dissolution of My Sister Wives Closet is the ultimate vindication for her decision to leave. It's the universe handing her a giant flashing neon sign that says, "You were right all along. Christine escaped the sinking ship before it was officially condemned. She is completely insulated from this mess. Her name isn't on the dissolution. She bears none of the public shame or potential legal liability. She is free. More than that, the failure of the family's joint venture proves the toxicity of the system she fled. For years, she was made to feel like her contributions weren't valued. She was the primary caregiver, the homemaker, but when it came to business, her opinions were often dismissed by Kody and Robyn. We now have an explosive new report from a source very close to the family during the Las Vegas years that confirms Christine's long-standing frustrations with the business. Insider report. Christine fought for years to get financial transparency with MSWC. It was a huge, unaired source of conflict. She wanted to see the books. She wanted to know exactly where the money was going. Kody and Robyn treated it like a state secret. They'd tell her it was complicated and that she didn't understand the big picture. It was incredibly infantilizing. Her asking for basic financial information was treated as an act of betrayal. That lack of transparency was a major factor in her realizing she had no real power or partnership in the family. The business was just another thing Kody and Robyn controlled. This is a bombshell. It confirms that Christine saw the mismanagement and the financial secrecy years ago. She tried to be a responsible partner, and she was stonewalled. So she did the smartest thing anyone in that family has ever done. She left, and she built her own brand. And look at her now. She has her successful digital cooking show, Cooking with Just Christine. She is a massive influencer for Plexus, making a significant income on her own terms. She has become the master of her own financial destiny. The failure of My Sister Wives Closet is the perfect foil to her success. The business that was run by Kody and Robyn, shrouded in secrecy and neglect, crashed and burned. The businesses run by Christine, built on her own authentic personality and hard work, are thriving. It is a perfect karmic lesson. She didn't just leave a bad marriage, she left a failed business partner. And her reward is a life of freedom, love, and financial independence. Christine Brown didn't just win, she lapped everyone else. The pragmatist who was sidelined, Janelle Brown. Janelle's position is more nuanced. She is both a loser and a winner. In the early days, Janelle was the business brain of the family. She had a stable career in accounting before the show. She understood numbers and pragmatism. In a functional company, she would have been the CFO. But My Sister Wives Closet was never a functional company. It was an ego project. Janelle's practical, sensible approach was likely no match for Kody's manic vision and Robyn's creative whims. She was almost certainly sidelined, her expertise ignored in favor of shiny, unviable ideas. The dissolution represents the death of a venture into which she, at least initially, poured her practical energy, only to see it squandered. In that sense, it's a loss, a symbol of her wasted efforts and the frustration of being in a partnership with people who refuse to listen to reason. However, like Christine, Janelle is a survivor who long ago learned to build her own life raft. She saw the writing on the wall. While Kody and Robyn were playing with jewelry designs, Janelle was investing in real estate, developing her own income streams, and focusing on the tangible well-being of her children. The failure of MSWC barely registers on her radar now. She has her successful health and wellness business with her daughter. She has her own brand. The dissolution simply confirms what she probably knew for a decade. Kody Brown is a terrible business partner. It frees her from any lingering, symbolic obligation to the failed family dream and allows her to focus on what has always been her priority, her children and her own financial security. She lost a small, symbolic battle, but she had already insulated herself so well that the outcome of the war was irrelevant to her survival. The queen on a throne of ashes, Robyn Brown. And finally, we come to the most fascinating figure in this drama. Robyn Brown, did she win or did she lose? The answer is stunning and tragic, both. On the surface, Robyn won the grand prize. She got Kody, she got the monogamous marriage she always seemed to want. She lives in the big house, and she is the undisputed queen of Kody's ever-shrinking kingdom. She outlasted all her rivals. But the dissolution of My Sister Wives Closet is a devastating personal blow to her. This business was her baby. It was her entry point into the family, her justification for being there. It was her identity. She wasn't just another wife. She was the creative director, the business partner. The failure of MSWC is a direct failure of her vision and her influence. She now reigns as the queen of a failed state. The empire she helped build has crumbled. The family culture she so often cried about is gone. And the business that was meant to be her legacy is now a public joke, a case study in mismanagement. This leads us to the most explosive theory we have received yet. A source claims the dissolution wasn't just about neglect, it was the result of a final, bitter corporate showdown. Insider report. Towards the end, as the family was breaking up, Kody and Robyn made a final play. They wanted to take MSWC and rebrand it as their company, Kody and Robyn Designs, or something equally ridiculous. They went to Mary, Janelle, and Christine and essentially demanded they sign over their shares in the corporation for free or for a token amount. They saw it as their intellectual property that OG3, especially Christine and Janelle, flat out refused. They told them if they wanted them out, they'd have to buy them out at a fair valuation. Kody, having no liquid cash because it was all tied up in Coyote Pass and Robyn's house, couldn't do it. The standoff was a stalemate. So Kody and Robyn made a decision. If they couldn't have it all, nobody could. They deliberately let the corporation die by state dissolution. It was their scorched earth way of wiping the slate clean and destroying any legal claim the other wives had to the brand. It wasn't just neglect, it was a deliberate execution. If this is true, it is the ultimate betrayal. It transforms the narrative from one of incompetence to one of pure malice. They would rather see their family dream be publicly executed by the government than allow the other wives to get their fair share. And this is why Robyn is sitting on a throne of ashes. She may have Kody, but she is tied to a man who has now proven he will burn everything to the ground to get his way. Her business is gone. Her sister's wives are gone. Her public image is in tatters. She won Kody Brown, but what she failed to realize is that Kody Brown's value was propped up by the very women she helped drive away. She is the queen of nothing, ruling alongside a king of failure. The Symbolic Reckoning, a tale of four businesses. The death of my sister wife's closet is more than just a financial footnote. It is a powerful symbol of the core dysfunction of the Brown family. It is the ultimate proof that Kody's one family model was a failure not just emotionally but practically. The business that was supposed to bind them together to prove that their collective was stronger than its individual parts became the very thing that proved the opposite. Look at the evidence. The one business controlled by Kody and Robyn, built on a foundation of secrecy and favoritism, failed in the most embarrassing way possible. Now look at the businesses run by the ex-wives. Mary's Lizzie's Heritage Inn is a triumph. It's a beautifully restored, award-winning establishment. It required meticulous planning, financial investment, and hands-on daily management. Mary accomplished this on her own despite Kody's initial disdain for the project. Her success is a direct rebuke to his lack of faith and his own incompetence. Christine's brand is a juggernaut. She has monetized her own personality. People love her authenticity, her joy, her recipes. She built a community and a thriving business by simply being herself, the very thing she was not allowed to be within the confines of the Brown family. Her success is a testament to the power of individuality over forced conformity. Janelle's ventures, from her Strive with Janelle brand to her real estate investments, are pragmatic and smart. They are built on common sense and a clear-eyed view of the future. She is quietly and effectively building her own financial security, free from the chaos and ego of her former husband. The contrast could not be more stark. When freed from Kody Brown's leadership, the sister wives have thrived as entrepreneurs. The moment they were able to control their own destinies, they succeeded. The dissolution of my sister wife's closet is the final piece of evidence proving that Kody Brown wasn't the leader. He was the anchor weighing them all down. The ghost of Coyote Pass. Lingering liabilities and legal tangles. An involuntary dissolution is the messiest way to end a business. It doesn't just neatly close the book, it can leave behind a ghost of legal and financial liabilities that can haunt the owners for years. And this ghost is hovering directly over the family's most valuable and contentious asset, Coyote Pass. To understand the potential danger, we consulted with a corporate litigation attorney, who we will call David, to protect his professional identity. We laid out the scenario: a dissolved C Corp, shared ownership of other assets among the former corporate officers, and a history of messy finances. This is a precarious situation. The primary protection a corporation offers is the corporate veil, which separates the business's debts from the owner's personal assets. When a company is involuntarily dissolved for failure to maintain corporate formalities, like filing annual reports, it gives potential creditors a powerful argument to pierce the corporate veil. A court could rule that the owners weren't treating the corporation as a separate legal entity, but rather as their personal piggy bank. If that happens, any debts the business has can be collected from the owners personally. Now, we don't know if MSWC had any outstanding debts to suppliers, manufacturers, or even the IRS. But given the level of mismanagement we've seen, it's certainly a terrifying possibility. If a creditor came forward, they could potentially sue Kody, Robyn, and Mary not just for the business assets, which are likely worthless, but for their personal assets. We're talking about bank accounts, cars, and yes, even their real estate holdings, including their shares of Coyote Pass. But David pointed out an even more immediate problem. The bigger issue might be the title to the land itself. We often see convoluted ownership structures in these family businesses. If my sister wife's closet Inc. was in any way tied to the financing or the initial purchase agreements for Coyote Pass, if it was listed as a guarantor, for example, its dissolution could trigger clauses in those agreements. At best, it creates a massive title headache that will need to be cleaned up by expensive lawyers before they can ever sell or build. At worst, it could potentially cloud the title in a way that makes the land almost impossible to develop or liquidate without the unanimous consent of all parties, including the now estranged wives. This is a potential nightmare scenario. The dissolution of their jewelry business could have inadvertently thrown a legal wrench into their multi-million-dollar real estate investment. Kody's dream of building his patriarchal compound on Coyote Pass may have been killed not by family infighting, but by his failure to pay a $20 renewal fee years ago. It's the ultimate irony. The small act of neglect, born from arrogance and laziness, could have catastrophic financial consequences that are far from over. The ghost of my sister wife's closet could haunt Coyote Pass for years to come, a constant reminder of Kody's failed leadership and the day the government officially declared his family business dead on arrival. The final betrayal and a future forged in freedom. When we strip away the legal jargon, the financial theories, and the corporate filings, what are we left with? We are left with a simple human story of betrayal. The involuntary dissolution of my sister wife's closet was the final act of betrayal in a long and tragic play. It was a betrayal of the partnership promised to marry Janelle and Christine. It was a betrayal of the trust they placed in Kody as their leader. And it was a betrayal of the audience, who for years were sold a story of a unified family business that was, in reality, a hollow shell left to be destroyed by the state. This was not a quiet fading away. This was a conscious decision, whether born of malice or neglect, to let the one thing that legally bound them all together be executed in the most public and embarrassing way imaginable. It was the bureaucratic equivalent of Kody Brown throwing his hands up and saying, "I'm done with these women, and I'm done with the mess we made together. Let the government clean it up." And what of the Queen of Ashes, Robyn? Our sources paint a bleak picture. Insider report. Robyn is devastated by the failure of MSWC and even more by the public nature of it. It was her entire identity in the family. She feels it makes her look like a failure. Kody, on the other hand, doesn't seem to care. He's already talking about his next big idea, some new venture that will make them millions. He doesn't grasp that his reputation is shot. Robyn realizes she's tied her wagon to a man who is all talk, and she's living in the quiet mansion with the consequences of his failures. She won the man, but she lost the empire, and the empire was the only thing that made the man seem worthwhile. A chilling final thought. Robyn is left to survey the wreckage of her dream, while her former sister wives are out in the world, building new lives, new loves, and new successful businesses, completely free from the chaos. The story of my sister wife's closet is the story of the Brown family in microcosm. It started with promise and hope, a symbol of their united front, but it was slowly poisoned by favoritism, secrecy, and a catastrophic failure of leadership. Its public, embarrassing death is the final, definitive statement on the entire Brown family experiment. The state of Utah, in its dry, bureaucratic language, didn't just dissolve a business. It issued a public verdict. A verdict on the hypocrisy, the neglect, and the shattered promises. It's an official epitaph for a dream that died not from a lack of sales, but from a complete and utter lack of care. And the final words on that epitaph for all the world to see are simple, brutal, and true. Failed, delinquent, dissolved. What do you think? Was this a calculated, malicious act, or the height of incompetence? Let me know your explosive theories in the comments below. Thank you for joining me here at Coco Gossip, where the truth is always more shocking than the reality show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more deep dives into the stories they don't want you to see. Until next time, stay gossiping.